Welcome to Grandma Midwife's Suburban Homestead. Today we're canning potatoes. Now, my husband and I enjoy scallop potatoes, or some, you might want to call them potatoes au gratin. And I like to put some of these potatoes up for quick scallop potatoes. So come along with me while we can them up and get them ready. I bought some potatoes on sale, and so we're going to get those peeled, and then we'll be right back. So here I'm getting ready to slice them up. I have an OXO mandolin slicer, and I set it to 1/4 inch, and we'll get these potatoes sliced up and get them in some cold water after we slice them. You need to make sure that your potatoes are in cold water after you get them peeled and while you're slicing them up. Otherwise, they will turn brown because of oxidation. That's the natural process that they go through when they hit air. So let's get these taters sliced. Okay, so I've got water coming to boil to blanch the potatoes, and my jars are getting sterilized slowly but surely. Alright, so I rinsed the potatoes several times in cold water to get as much starch out as possible. That pot of water over there that you really can't see behind the canner, I brought the water to a boil, and I'm placing the potatoes in there. You want to blanch them just for about 2 to 3 minutes, and that gets them ready to hot pack them. All right, so I have a stainless steel table next to my stove. We don't have cabinets put in yet, so I'm getting it ready to take the jars out of the canner, and I like to place them on a pan just to kind of keep the cleaning part up a little bit easier. But you handle them. I have 2 jar lifters because I like to take them out and transfer them over. And you just set the jars up and get them ready to fill. All right, it's time to fill the jars. Place your funnel in the jar, and I just strain the potatoes off of the water, put them in the jar, and fill up each jar up to 1 inch headspace. want to boil water. The temperature of the water has to be at least 140 degrees to put in these jars on top of the potatoes. I got a pan of potatoes ready to make some scalloped potatoes for dinner that night, and then I decided against it. So, oh well, I'll put them in jars and can them up. All right, time to add the salt to the potatoes. I use a half a teaspoon. Now these are 24-ounce jars, and for a quart, some people use a teaspoon, and for pints, people use a half a teaspoon, but I'm somewhere in between, and I use a little bit more than a half a teaspoon for these size jars. So I just put that amount into each jar, and then we add water. And when you're adding water, you just make sure you maintain that 1-inch headspace. You've got to have headspace, especially when you're dealing with meats and starchy vegetables, because those starchy vegetables will expand a little bit while they're canning. Time to debubble. I use a chopstick and just go down the sides of the jar. You do not want to use a metal object to do this with. I have a spatula that I sometimes use, a rubber spatula. You can use a plastic knife or just really anything with a straight edge. You want to get those bubbles out because there is some space in there that needs to be released. When the air is released and those bubbles come up, you will have a little bit more headspace, so you may need to add a little bit more water. All right, headspace is maintained. I wipe the rims. You can either use a dry paper towel, you can use water, or you can use vinegar. I prefer vinegar. It's just what I've been using all along, but it gives you a chance to make sure there's no imperfections in the glass and make sure those rims are nice and clean to maintain a seal when they pressure can. And once again, check your headspace. I've had my lids sitting in warm water, very warm water, and so I just add them on. You can use a lifter. You don't have to at this point as long as you don't touch the seal, and just place them on top of your jars. And then you're going to add your rings and put them on fingertip tight. Right here, they're not quite fingertip tight. I just kind of put them on, and then I'll pick them up and tighten them up just a wee bit. Okay, I got my canner, got my hot water in there, my hot jars. That's one thing you need to make sure you do. Add hot water, hot jars, because you don't want them to burst. One thing I forgot to do here is show you to vent your canner. You turn your canner on your stove, and you vent for 10 minutes before you place the weight. And that venting is part of your processing time. Once the 10 minutes is over, then you'll add the weight. Once the weight is on, bring your pressure canner up to the pressure recommended for your elevation. Mine is 10 to 11 pounds. With a weighted pressure canner, it would be 10. A gauged is 11 pounds. Once you're getting close to that 10 to 11 pound mark, you want to turn your stove down to maintain a pressure at that 10 to 11 pounds. Pints are processed for 35 minutes and quarts are 40. I did the 24 ounces for 40 minutes. And then I let the pressure canner cool and come back down to pressure of 0 and let that little nipple come down. And then I just tilt the lid off. Once the pressure canner has cooled down sufficiently, you can start taking your potatoes out. If you lift that lid too soon, you're going to get siphoning, and the liquid is going to spew out the top of your jars. The siphoning happens because of a rapid drop in temperature, so I just tilted that lid off for a little while, about 15 or 20 minutes, and then I came back in and took the lid completely off. And now I'm removing the jars, and look how pretty. Aren't they nice?